What's going on, everybody? You're listening to episode 11 of the Point NHL Recap Show. I'm Pascal Pryor, joined once again by Mark Howlerlach. Mark, how you doing this week, man?
Doing good, buddy. I'm really pumped up to be here in person with you, finally doing this. Got a pretty nice setup here. Curious to know what everyone thinks about it, but I'm ready to go here. I think it's just going to be a different dynamic doing this in person.
Will be, dude.
We kind of got a lot of things to talk about today, too. There's kind of a lot going on in the NHL. World Juniors is kind of just starting up. A lot of like the rosters being released, camps and stuff like that. But obviously there's a lot going on before Christmas. Definitely excited to kind of dive into that right away and just get going here. We got some news, especially with like the All-Star game, too. It seems like it's taken another step, so...
Dude, I'm fucking fired up right now. For those of you watching, big change here. We're actually recording in person now on a set. I think the set honestly looks pretty good. If you are looking behind me right now, there's a massive fucking gap on the wall. We're ordering a big point-to-point banner that's going to go there, so don't worry about that. I think the set's looking good. I think the video is really going to do a lot better on YouTube, hopefully. But yeah, as you mentioned, it's holiday season. Pumped about that as well. And yeah, we have a lot to talk about today. I think we should get right into it with the All-Star game. So the All-Star events, it's changing formats this year. There's going to be 12 players competing in challenges. With the winner, they're going to be taking home $1 million grand prize. Pretty significant money right there. So basically, it's as follows. Each All-Star will compete in 4 of the first 6 events, and those events are the fastest skater, the hardest shot, the stick handling event, one-timers, a passing challenge, and accuracy shooting. So sort of the typical events that we've had for the last decade or so. But then from there, the top 8 point earners are going to advance and compete in the shootout challenge. And the shootout challenge, it looks like it's going to be the same sort of style, but now players are going to be going for points and really looking to win it. So I don't think you're going to see as much of like the goofy nonsense that we've seen in years past. So that's going to be the 7th challenge. And then the 8th challenge, 2 players, they're going to get eliminated from that 7th challenge, the shootout.
Right.
So then the remaining 6 players are going to take place in an obstacle course challenge. And then from there, whoever has the most overall points will basically take home the NHL All-Star events winner and take home that $1 million. And then so the way the points are going to work as well, for the first 7 events, first place gets 5, second gets 4, third gets 3, fourth gets 2 points, 5th gets 1 point, and then 6th place gets none. And then for the final, like the 8th challenge, which is the obstacle course, it's going to be first place gets 10 points, second gets 8, third gets 6, fourth gets 4, 5th gets 2, and 6th, once again, gets 0 points. So for that like last challenge, the points double, and it really means a lot more. After all I said, though, Mark, what do you think? Like, what do you think of these changes to the All-Star events?
I think it's definitely going to bring like a different dynamic to this whole event, right? A lot of people are complaining that over the past couple of years, like, there's obviously some of the same stuff incorporated, but it seems to get a little bit like stale and boring. You know what I mean? My one question is, though, like, it's going to be really entertaining for these players. So, like, is it only going to be 12 guys kind of participating, like, in the whole league? Or is it just, like, kind of this is a section of the All-Star game, and they're going to be doing, like, other things as well? Do you know what I mean?
I think it looks like it's only going to be 12 guys right now. I didn't see too much other news.
See, that's the one thing that's a little bit odd to me, but I do like that it's kind of worth more. And the thing is, it's like, some of these All-Stars make a lot of money, but there's probably going to be some guys that are in here that like don't make a lot. You know what I mean? So it's like these guys that maybe make $3-4 million, like $1 million is like a big, it's a big deal, right?
For sure.
Like, and even if McDavid wins it, it's like, I don't know, who cares, man? Like, he's got another $1 million. Like, do whatever you want with it, right? It's like, doesn't mean he's less deserving just because he makes all this money right now. But I think the whole money aspect is definitely going to kind of make some guys push that extra a little bit. Because I think before it was like they won like 10 grand a competition or something for like, I know like Kyrou and he got the fastest skater.
Yeah, it wasn't worth it there.
It wasn't worth a lot. And I know for some it was more like you can donate it to a certain charity or something, which some guys might end up doing themselves, right? Their choice. But I think just the whole money aspect, the fact that it didn't McDavid like come up with this, or like didn't he have a huge say in this?
He did have a huge say in this.
I think that's really interesting, right? Like, you have the best player in the world. He probably realizes this event's kind of getting stale too. He's been there for years. Maybe he's talked to some guys around the league saying like, listen, like, I think it'd be cool if we did some sort of obstacle course, like make it worth something. It's going to be different, right? It's in Toronto this year. You're not going to Florida where it's nice and warm. They're gonna have to do something to make this good. We've already talked about a couple weeks ago with this draft. Man, I'm not gonna lie, I'm pretty excited for the All-Star game this year. I know a lot of people might think that's crazy to say, but I'm really looking forward to seeing it this year and seeing how it goes. Like, even if it doesn't work out, it's like they made a change. They gave it a shot, and let's see if this works out. If it doesn't, brainstorm again for next year. If it works, that's fantastic.
I think it should work because the biggest thing in the NHL All-Star, like this events challenges, that's been the biggest thing is like players aren't trying. It really just feels like a social event more than a skills competition. Where now, like the $1 million, as you mentioned, like even if you are Connor McDavid or Austin Matthews, like you're like the highest paid player in the league, that's still $1 million. Like it's not like this is the NBA where guys are making $40 million a year. Like,
so
you're making 15 max in the NHL if you're the top player.
So last night, I knew we were going to talk about this today. I actually was on YouTube and I watched a little bit of the skills competition last year, and they had that event where it was like they rim the puck around the boards, the goalie goes to shoot for a goal, and it was either essentially like if they score, it becomes a 3-on-0 on the opposite goalie. If they hit the net, it's a 2-on-0, and if they miss it completely, it's a 1-on-0. Cool idea. But man, was it boring.
Yeah.
Like, it was just so stale. Like, half the goalies couldn't even hit the net from long distance, so it's like a 1-on-0 when, like, dude, like, Suzuki and Dahlin were going on a 2-on-0. They didn't even get a shot off. And they're laughing. And it's like, can you blame them, though? Like, you know what I mean? So it's like, I don't know. In that aspect, I was like, you know what? There's a change that really needs to be made. I'm happy that they're at least trying this. They got the best player on the planet to kind of design this. You know what I mean? So, I mean, we criticize the NHL a lot, but I think this is a thumbs up for the league for sure.
Oh, this is for sure a thumbs up for the league. I'm surprised we didn't think of this first because it seems like all the good ideas that the NHL's been having lately, we come up with it on this podcast first. So, like, NHL, first of all, should hire us. And then second of all, if you're not listening, start listening. Because
10 episodes in, man.
We're ahead of the game here right now. Let's move on to the big story from this past weekend. It seemed to be player suspensions and sort of like how the NHL right now is handling their
This seems like it's
referees.
been a huge problem.
It was ugly, and I think this coming week we're going to see the NHL referees probably crack down on some of this a lot more. So let's get started off here. There was a couple scenarios over this past weekend. The first one was the Nick Cousins one on Eric Goodbranson. So Nick Cousins runs Eric Goodbranson right in the numbers behind his net. No penalty. Actually, no, there was a penalty given out. It was called a 5-minute major, and then they reviewed it and bumped it down to a 2-minute penalty instead of a 5-minute. Goodbranson, he did not like that. So later on in the game, Matthew Tkachuk and Nick Cousins are crossing the blue line. Tkachuk gives it over on the wing to Nick Cousins, and Goodbranson basically just jumps him. He just I don't know what else to call it. He jumped Nick Cousins mid-play. And the big thing to take away from here is Goodbranson is given 1 game for that altercation that happened later on in the game. But like Nick Cousins runs a fucking guy from behind, man. Like,
dude, that was not a good hit.
It was the most obvious fucking thing I've ever seen.
It was not a good hit, man. And I think
dude.
I think the whole Goodbranson thing later on definitely could have been avoided if they took the proper precautions right away, right? The thing was with Cousins and Goodbranson too, man. They're actually former teammates.
Yeah,
these guys know each other. Obviously, it's different on the ice when you got opponents, right? Like, who knows if they even like each other? We don't even know. But that was not pretty. Goodbranson, obviously, he's known for that big, tough game. Like, it's more or less what I'm thinking is, like, does Cousins think that Goodbranson's not going to respond? Like, it's just...
We all know
it's kind of weird to go after a guy like that, to be honest. There's a couple different scenarios this weekend as well. Like, we got written down here, like, the Kane on Brodin. Brodin's out for 6 weeks, dude.
I was another ugly one.
That wasn't a great hit, to be honest. The thing is, what's odd to me is, right, the one thing we don't have written on here, though, I don't know if you saw it, was Eric Robinson hitting Justin Barron from behind Buffalo, Montreal on the weekend.
I completely missed that one.
So I was watching that game. I originally saw it, and I was like, holy shit, that was a bad hit. Like, he better get a 5. Barron gets up, goes to the room. He ends up coming back after. I saw the replay, and I was like, you know what? It's not as bad as I thought. Like, it's probably a boarding penalty, but I wouldn't kick him out. And they called a 5. He got kicked out. Habs scored 2 goals on the power play. It changed the complete dynamic of the game. And the thing after the game, Okposo, he did an interview, and he said, listen, I thought it was a penalty, but I watched Minnesota play the night before, saw Kane level Brodin. He gets nothing, and Robinson gets a 5. He's like, I don't care if you call it a 5, but, like, it's different game to game. And to be honest, the Brodin hit with Kane was a lot worse than Robinson's. And Robinson's the one who got kicked out, five in a game. He just got traded to Buffalo last week too, dude. It's like, this is one of his first games. It was like, I kind of almost felt bad for him a little bit. I was like, I think he deserves a boarding penalty. And then we're talking here like Ryan Strome knee on knee with Kyle Connor. No suspension given out. Connor's out 6 to 8 weeks.
If I'm being honest, when I'm watching that one, I don't think there should have been I don't think he deserves a suspension.
I don't know if he does either, but it's just like, it's the inconsistency, I think, dude, that's just really kind of driving fans nuts, but it's also driving players nuts, dude, because they don't know what's the line. What can't we cross here? And then we have another situation in another game with Ottawa on Detroit where I don't purposely think Joseph meant to hurt Larkin. I really don't.
No shot he did.
But
man.
then
no shot.
Perron comes in. And look, I understand your captain is laying on the ground. He almost looks lifeless. You got to stick up for him. First of all, you went after the long guy. And second of all, cross-checking a guy in the face, I'm sorry, I don't think is the way to go about it. At all. Ask him to drop the gloves and start punching him in the face.
Even if you do what like Branson did, where you just jump the guy, like it's the fact that it was a cross check to the face to a player who wasn't expecting it, and it was the wrong fucking guy. Like you couldn't even get the right guy, man. Like, so that's the best part about that whole situation.
He's appealing that suspension, and Moritz Seider has been like very vocal on Twitter about how bullshit it is.
Yeah.
Which I don't necessarily know if it's bullshit, the suspension, to be honest, because it's like, dude, he cross-checked the guy in the face. Like,
but then again, like Jacob Trouba baseball batted a guy in the face
problem, right?
Like, didn't get a fucking suspension. It's like, as you mentioned, there's no fucking parity. Like for the David Perron one, you can't really compare it to the like Nick Cousins.
No, it's completely different.
It's two completely different plays. But it's like you can't compare it to stick altercations. At least for the Jacob Trouba one, it was like they were two players sort of like going at it. So it's like Jacob Trouba's out on his side. But it's like if Jacob Trouba isn't getting suspended and then David Perron a week later, who does like, it's a stick infraction to a player's head.
It is different, but it's actually like, it's still like,
still similar enough.
Both very violent, right? Like Trouba, look, I'm not convinced that Trouba meant to do that. I'm not, but at the same time, the punishment should not be judged on whether the guy meant to do it.
You're accountable
it should be
for your
whether
own
what he did it or not. I would have been totally content with him maybe getting like 2 games. Listen, you fucked up. Just pay the consequences. He even knew it. He was like, I need to control my stick. I honestly think he probably would have understood the suspension, but then we go a week later, Perron gets 6 games. It's like, I don't know what we're looking at anymore. It's just like, you kind of like toss your cards in a machine and it comes out, and that's what the suspension is going to be. There's zero consistency to this whatsoever. And I think they need to change. Like it's the Department of Player Safety and it's the refereeing. I understand refereeing is a very difficult job, and you're kind of in the second moments. But the thing was, even going back to the Montreal Buffalo game, it was like they called a 5, but I like them calling the 5 right away because then it gives them the opportunity to review it. You can put it down to a 2. It doesn't matter about the original call. If you just call the 2, you have no way to review it, and it could be a 5, right? Like, so I think if they're going to call a penalty and it looks vicious, they should call that 5, review it, see if it's worth it or not.
I completely agree with you on that. Like, I don't know why they don't just call the 5 and review it. But then even when they do review, like,
it just seems like they're not getting it right.
The Nick Cousins one they reviewed and bump it down to 2, where it's like he should have been fucking tossed, man. The guy almost paralyzed Eric Branson. Dude.
Yeah.
Like Branson was saying in the media, I don't know if it was that same day or like a day later, he was saying like, honestly, I'm just lucky I'm still walking right now.
Yeah.
It's really like, it's like, man, if Eric Branson saying
even
that,
like going back, dude, like to last week, like the whole Hathaway hit on Luke Hughes, dude, I didn't have a problem with that hit at all.
The issue there was that
the ref didn't blow the whistle for icing.
It was the refs that fucked up. It was the refs that, like, I don't think they were giving Hughes enough I don't think they were giving either of those players enough warning that, like, look, this is about to be an icing. So, like,
and I think I think their argument is that it was so close, right? The call. I just don't think Luke Hughes kind of was in a good position to take that hit, but I don't think that's also Hathaway's fault, right? Like, I watched that hit over and over, and I don't understand what made them stick with the 5. It made no sense to me. And then you lose him for 5 minutes. Obviously, he didn't get suspended, which he shouldn't have. But it's like that also like is a huge burden to the Flyers for 5 minutes to have the Devils on the power play. They're one of the best power play teams in the NHL.
The best power play team,
right? Like, so it's like there needs to be more consistency. I hate talking about the refs. I hate bringing this up. But it's like, dude, it's like how many different scenarios have we talked about in the past couple minutes over the past couple weeks where it's like the ref could have made a different decision, or even the league could have made a different decision in the moment regarding whether they want to do a 5 or 2, some of these suspensions as well. I think there needs to be a little bit more consistency. Things need to change. It would be nice to kind of like, if they laid it out sort of, but it's also so hard to like lay out like, okay, a hit from behind, whatever, 1 game, headshot, deliberate 2 games, but every situation is different, right? So it's not as easy as doing that.
They should at least have like a headshot that's a minimum 1 game, and then like it can lead to whatever.
Like direct contact to the head.
The way it is right now, nobody fucking knows. I don't even think George Peros, head of player safety, fucking knows what he's doing at this point, man. Like that guy has to have massive CTE from when he was playing.
I would love for them to record something about like meetings they have and like kind of release it years later, regardless if like Peros is not within the NHL like player safety anymore, just more or less what their thought process is. But then you're kind of narrowing down to that specific kind of suspension, and it's probably going to bring up a whole other can of worms, right? Like it probably will never happen.
Honestly, I think they should do that with each suspension. Perron gets suspended for 6 games. David Perron, we're handing him a 6-game suspension.
Imagine Peros had to do like a Zoom call or like a press conference every time there's suspension saying, listen, we decided to suspend David Perron for 6 games. We felt that, you know, right when he raised his hands and went directly for the head, that there was like malicious intent. Like
malicious intent to a player who wasn't expecting it, who was the wrong player. I think they should just put all that
like a minute.
Release,
like, you know what I mean? Like he doesn't have to like answer a million questions about it. Like just do a little conference, a little thing of what their thought process is, because it's very confusing as a fan right now.
Well, and for the players, it's confusing. Yeah, I think that's a great point, that they should either do like a 1-minute press conference video, whatever it is, put in a press release, just put something out there.
That's why I've always been on board with like refs doing post-game press conferences, man. I would think it'd be so cool.
I think we should move on from this, though. We've talked about it enough, and the more we talk about it, the worse it's probably gonna get. But I think we should add the little press conference to the point-to-point NHL little idea thing that we have going on with them right now, because watch, that's going to get fucking stolen at some point this season. No credit from them as usual too. The next big news we have for the day, though, is the Washington Capitals are possibly on the move. So the state of Virginia, they've reached a tentative agreement with the parent company of the Washington Capitals and the Washington Wizards to move both these teams to Northern Virginia. This would basically create a $2 billion development south of the Washington in Alexandria. It's about like a 20-minute drive. It's not far at all. Honestly, dude, I felt like a complete dumbass when I saw this first headline, because I'm like, holy shit, Washington's on the move, man. Like, damn, their fans are going to be so pissed off, bro. Like, they're moving to Virginia, dude. And then, like, I read the rest of the article, and it's like miles away, 20-minute drive. I'm like, oh, fuck, dude. I thought they were moving them like 4 hours away, dude. Nope. Psych.
Yeah. Like, it's... So, like, I'm assuming, are they still going to be called Washington, or are they going to be called, like, Virginia now?
I think you'd still have to go with a Washington.
So Capitals. I saw that this probably wouldn't happen until 2028. My thing right away was, I didn't see the date, and I was like, dude, is Ovi going to break the goal record, and they're going to be called the Virginia Capitals? Like, come on. So at least I'm happy that it's not till then. So at least if they are changing the name, like, he's not going to be playing anymore. Like, he's going to be 43 or whatever at that point. I mean, man, it's just kind of one of those things that happens, right? Like, teams relocate. Obviously, they're not going really far, so it's like they're not going to be losing their fans and stuff, right? Obviously, it's probably a little inconvenience to some people, but it's kind of just what has to be done at this point. I saw the whole layout of like outside the venue. It looks pretty cool, to be quite honest with you.
Sick, man.
I'm just honestly more curious than anything if they're going to be still called Washington.
Yeah, that's definitely a big question. Are they going to be still called Washington and stay on with like the Capitals thing? Because it's like that is really like the Washington Capitals, that Capitals part. Like,
the whole thing is, though, like, I could see them moving and not rebranding that, because it's probably a lot of money. And
well, it's 20-minute drive away, dude. Like, essentially, it'd be like if the Toronto Maple Leafs like moved to like
Scarborough.
Well, not even Scarborough. It's like I guess it should be a 20-minute drive, but like it's usually
in Toronto traffic, they're probably getting to the end of the street in Toronto. So
it'd be like if Toronto moved to Yonge and Dundas, man. No, but it'd be like if Toronto moved their arena to like one of the suburbs.
Yeah,
like you're not changing your name, right? Like, what are you gonna change your name to the GTA Maple Leafs? Like,
GTA.
You're not doing that shit, man. Fuck, dude. I think the Flames might start boycotting them if they did that. But yeah, as you mentioned, this development, dude, it looks insane, man. It's going to include an arena for both these teams. along with a Wizards practice facility. So as NHL fans, we don't give a fuck about that. It's going to have a separate performing arts center, a media studio, new hotels, a convention center, and then like housing and shopping as well. So it like this is really the way these teams and franchises are trying to go. Like Arizona last year with their whole Tempe, however you pronounce the city. Sorry to the people that live there. However you pronounce that city, like that's what they were sort of trying to do. Similar thing where you're not just building an arena, you're really building this whole like district and this whole like area, because that's essentially what's going to bring in like the most amount of money. Like same thing for the Calgary Flames right now. Like they're trying to build a new arena, but the way they're trying to do it again is
they're one of the teams that definitely needs one though.
Oh, without a doubt. I'm going to a game over the holidays, dude. I'm looking forward to it, but it's like, man, going to that stadium, it's like, holy shit, dude.
And the thing is with them, it's like, dude, there's nothing like being built right now, right? So it's like there's still more years at the Saddle Dome.
Yeah, it's definitely rough for them, but like at least they are working on this new stadium now. But yeah, it's the new thing for these teams is like instead of just building a rink or a stadium somewhere, it's really like building a whole district, so it doesn't just feel like a stadium in the middle of nowhere, right? Like again, another team, Ottawa, needs that. Their rink's fucking atrocious right now.
I think it's coming for them though.
Oh, it is.
Sooner than later.
New ownership, it is now. Them to a Stanley Cup win in 2019. Drew Bannister, he's been named interim head coach. The Blues not off to a great start this season, off to a 13-14-1 start, and they've now lost 4 in a row, so they're sort of on a little slide here. They currently sit 6th in the Central. But the thing is, like, dude, they're only one point out of a wild card spot, so it's like they're not that far out, man. Was this firing sort of surprising you? Because I was definitely a bit surprised by it.
I was definitely taken off guard a little bit by this. I think there was a little bit of rumblings of it happening last year, but I felt like that was a little bit like premature because the Blues, it was like more or less their first season. They're going to be out of the playoffs.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if Berube really deserves this. I guess the reason why I'm surprised is that they sent some guys out the deadline last year, right? That were more key guys, and like Tarasenko, Ryan O'Reilly, and they didn't really like replace that in the summer. Like they didn't bring in another center. They got Kevin Hayes, but it's like he's not Ryan O'Reilly, right? No. You didn't bring anything to replace Tarasenko, and it's like I more or less am surprised because it's like this is where I expected the Blues to kind of be. Obviously by their standards, they probably don't think that's good enough, and they think they're better team than this. It's weird because this firing is kind of different than the other coaches that happened this year. The other 2 guys, it was like team's not really playing great and your goaltending is like debatably the worst in the NHL.
Yeah. Their
goaltending's been pretty like solid. I wouldn't say it's been like fantastic, but Bennington's actually having a decent year. Joel Hofer's playing pretty good as well. I don't know if like a coaching change I know we said the same thing with Minnesota and they've been kind of rolling. I still don't know if they're going to get into the playoffs. But I don't think St. Louis has that great of a roster, to be quite honest. Like, I don't know if that this coaching change is going to, like, turn things around for them. They also placed, like, Jakub Vrana on waivers yesterday. He cleared today. That's an interesting case because he's a very efficient 5-on-5 goal scorer. He doesn't produce a ton, but he's also making, like, under $2 million or something in that range, 2.5. And he cleared today. I was kind of surprised if someone maybe didn't take a flyer on him. But I don't really know what's next for this team, is more or less what I'm trying to say. I could kind of see them like trying to compete for this playoff spot the rest of the year. I would be more than shocked if anything if they got in. I just don't think their roster is very talented. I don't see it. And the thing is, that doesn't really fall on Berube, in my opinion. I wonder if like his voice is kind of like being lost, to be honest. I know him and Kyrou are not like, don't really see eye to eye. In past years, he's been kind of like, he's been an efficient like point producer, right? And he's been playing like second, third line at times because like I don't know if they trust him up there or what it is. I more or less think that he's lost the room. That's my opinion. And the GM is realizing that he needs to make a change because besides that, I just don't know if it really makes sense.
Yeah, it's definitely surprising. Like this is a guy that took a team from last place to a Stanley Cup win in the span of like 3-4 months.
Dude, and it's crazy. Like this guy just like, dude, that was 4 years ago, and that was his first season, and now he's gone.
I think a team will definitely try to pick him up here at some
There's some good coaches out here, man. All 3 guys that have been fired, I think, are capable and should get a job eventually.
Oh, without a doubt. The biggest thing, though, I think that the St. Louis Blues saw and like really took into account when they fired Craig Berube was just the success that these other two teams that have fired their coaches mid-season have had. Like the Minnesota Wild, they're not doing as hot right now, but after they fired their
Did they go 4-2?
Yeah, they won 4 games in a straight. And then when you look at the Oilers right now, they're the NHL's hottest team on an 8-game.
Dude, aren't they above 500 now?
They're on an 8-game winning streak, 1 point out of the wild card spot.
See, this is what I mean with like we were talking about the Oilers, like.
Yeah, we're talking about them later. So
I know we are talking about later. They just had a terrible start, right? They're turning it around now. So St. Louis, I'm sure they're hoping they can do the same thing. They don't have those anchors to me.
Man. Your best players are Robert Thomas and Jordan Kyrou.
And Buchnevich, and it's like
those guys aren't carrying you to
and it's like
spot, man.
Your D are not the same. Parayko's not the same. Krug, Falk, those guys are not as good as like their peak.
They should go into a rebuild.
I think so too. I would try to keep Thomas and Kyrou because it's like they're young, they got contracts that are long. Try to keep them, but besides that, try to sell off some parts, man. Yeah. Teams would take Parayko. He's a big guy, blocks shots, hits.
I think Parayko, Falk, and who's the other one?
Krug.
Yeah, I think all three of those guys, like teams would be interested in picking up, especially when you look at like how sort of shit the defensive market's been so far this 100%. Season. Like who's the guy in Philadelphia? Sean Walker.
Yeah.
Dude, like apparently Philly's asking for a first-round pick for him. Like,
so he's playing really good this year, but that's an excessive.
I've never heard of this guy.
That's an excessive ask.
I've never heard of this guy until 3 weeks ago, and now it's like they're asking for a first-round pick. Man, like, come on, dude. Let's get serious now here, Philadelphia.
Yeah, I don't think that's gonna happen.
I think we should move on to our next team though. Carolina Hurricanes. Man, has this team looked fucking awful recently. They're 5th in the Metro right now, sitting outside a playoff spot. They just don't look the same. Mark, what's wrong with them right now, though? What are you seeing with this team?
So I follow this team quite a bit, right? I'd say besides Montreal, they're like more or less my second favorite team.
In the same conference, man. That's not allowed, dude.
Dude, and like the whole Kotkaniemi fucking offer sheet thing with Aho. Habs and Canes fans hate each other, and I'm sitting here like, man, these are my two favorite teams.
You're going to get jumped next game. You go to a Bell Center, buddy.
After this podcast comes out, I might buy some Habs fans, but dude, this team looks completely fucking different than last year. So I was a little bit like optimistic going into this year, right? Like it's like, what do you think of when you think Carolina? Like
think of a
bunch of dogs, grind hard, play good defense, and it's like they put it all on the line for Rod, right?
Yeah.
What's happening this year? Well, they added some more defense. They got Orlov, dude. I was like, okay.
Their defense is arguably one of the the
on
best.
On paper,
core.
like probably one of the best. Dude, they are not playing good D.
No.
Orlov's looked bad since coming over. Rod has their defensive system, this man-on-man. And it's not working out for them this year. And I think the main problem with this team has been their goaltending.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's the fact that their D is poor and their goaltenders aren't bailing them out. Because in past years, you'd see some of their goalies have like inflated numbers because of how good their D is, right? Like Mrazek was there a couple of years. He looked really good. And like now what is he? You know what I mean? It definitely sucks losing Freddie, I will say. As much as some people have opinions on him.
Massive blow for him, man.
I think that for sure he's more or less a guy that would have been at least a starter playing 50-50. But Ronta and Kochekov have been terrible. Like I got their numbers right here. Ronta, 6-5, 3.40 GAA, 860 save percentage. Kochekov, 5-6-1, 293 GAA, 883 save percentage. Like how long do you wait for this team to make a move for a goaltender? Like they're 15-12-1 right now. They're outside of a playoff spot. This is a team usually that at this point of the season we're talking about them being in first and second in their division, how good they're looking, they're playing good defense.
Are they going to win the President's Trophy?
Exactly. But this year it's different, right? But my question is like, is this good for Carolina in the sense of they're not peaking now? In other years, they probably peaked in the season, then they fade out in the playoffs, second round, first round, couple conference finals. Is this a team where you think in the next month or so, if they get going, kind of get that hot wave, could they ride that into playoffs and like go on a run here? Or do you think like this team's just not really talented enough?
Dude, they're talented enough. They're good enough. Like, with what out of their past seasons where they've had the success, like what major changes have they had that's really made this team worse? Like they haven't had any. I think it's a fact.
Just besides losing the goaltender, I guess nothing really.
Outside of that, yeah, but like Kucherov and Ranta, though, they're still good goaltenders. It's not like these guys are terrible goaltenders. Like, I think this is a team that's going to, like, they're going to turn around. Like, they're outside the playoffs. They're not that far outside the playoffs right now.
No, it's just like, it's weird that they're out though, right? Like they're so close to 500.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, they never are.
I think they're going to turn it around, man. The only thing though that has worried me a bit here is how hard on this team that Brindamore's been. Like, he's called out the star players
I know.
a little bit recently. And it's like, how much more of that can you do until those players start to be like, fuck this guy?
But dude, the thing is, like, I got their stats right here, man.
Yeah.
It's like Aho's got 25 points, 25 games, but then it's like Nikash has got 20 and 28. Jarvis has got 20. Teravainen 19. Brady Shea's got 18. They're not getting a lot of production, dude, from their best players at this point in the season. Svechnikov's out again. He was injured for a little bit. Like, we're not even mentioning, like, Brent Burns' name on this list. Like,
Yeah.
he was a very good offensive producer for them last season. He's not really doing that this year. I just wonder, like, if this team needs one more piece on offense.
I think it might.
My theory is that they're currently going after Kuzmenko.
I'd love that fit with them, man. I would love that.
So
fit.
I've been seeing that Vancouver's been talking to an Eastern Conference team about him because it's not really working out with Talkit.
Yeah, well, he's sat a couple games.
So I think that Carolina's going after Kuzmenko. That's what I think. I actually think it'd be a pretty good addition, to be quite honest with you. There are some Russians on the team as well, like Svechnikov. I think it would be a really good help for them. He's obviously a proven goal scorer. They need a little bit more goal scoring, I think. Is the problem.
They definitely do.
Bunting has been a pretty decent ad for them, too. He's been playing like up and down that lineup, but there's something about the team, man. I think it's just their lack of firepower up front. It's kind of like Aho and then everyone else.
I like Sheshnikov, but he's been injured a fair
it's just
bit,
it's his health that's been a huge concern, right? So I think Carolina's probably got like a couple moves up their sleeve. I would kind of stick with it, though. The whole Brendamore thing is weird, though, because it's like, to what point is it like, is he going to start losing the room, dude? Then are we going to be talking about this guy being out the door? It's like, dude, like, I don't like that. That shouldn't be the route for Carolina. I don't think, man. I hope that they are able to turn this thing around and like kind of bring that into playoffs this year and go on a run instead of like peaking at this point of the season, you know?
Dude, they'll turn it around, man. If 15, 12, and 1, 32 points is your like bad, is your bad start to the season, like, man, like they'll
4-game losing streak in Western Canada too, like not great, but
you mentioned Edmonton earlier, and we're gonna talk about it more on the podcast, but it's like, man, like Edmonton, if they're almost back in a playoff spot now after the start they fucking had. Dude, I mean, hey, they've been hot recently.
they've been pretty good recently.
No, dude, Carolina's getting in, man. They've just been sort of mid to start the season here. They'll turn it around. They'll start playing some better hockey here going forward, and
at times, like not specifically Rantanen, but players, it's like I don't really think he's doing his job properly. But like I don't know where he's trying to get at by making this comment, like saying he didn't have a terribly swell summer. Like, is he trying to imply like Rantanen didn't train enough and he was like boozing and shit, or like
I think that I don't think he was
but it's
implying
like
the
it's
boozing
like
part, but
why, bro? It's like it's your son's teammate, dude. Like if you want to criticize his game, listen, I don't agree with I agree with you in the sense like 3 games, I don't give a shit, whatever. But if you want to criticize him over that, fuck, go ahead. But I don't know why you're bringing like his personal like training life and off season into that.
That's
it doesn't really make sense to me. But yeah, like listen, I really am curious to like wonder, like, do you think Rantanen's like, I wonder how Rantanen and Lekkonen's relationship is right now.
In the article I was reading, it was saying that like they still remain friends. They're still good.
It's maybe just because with some people it's like some people have the mentality where it's like, oh, your dad said this, like fuck you too.
Yeah.
But some guys are just more like, he's him, you're you. I'm just mad at him. It has nothing to do with you, right? So I'm kind of curious what the thoughts are on that. Like even how Lekkonen felt about Rantanen saying that about his dad. Like I don't really know, right? I'm kind of curious to see if this is going to like bring them together or what's going on. But personally, if I was Lekkonen's dad, I'd probably like give him an apology because I don't really think that's right for him to like say something like that. Because now it's like, dude, I'm here sitting here speculating that was he boozing all summer and not training? It's like I don't know what happened, but the way he says that, it makes it seem like it's something along those lines, right? So it's like, I don't know. I think he's got to come out and say something to be a bit more clear about this. Because it's just like, I don't know, they don't really need this distraction, dude. Like, they're obviously doing really well. They're in first, but it's like, why are they doing this? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't really make much sense to me.
See, I think it's honestly all just been completely blown out of proportion. Like, if Mikko Rantanen didn't say what he said the other night, like, oh, I didn't like my teammate's dad, like, I would have never known what his
but if you were Rantanen, though, like, would you, like, I don't blame him for saying that.
I don't blame him for saying that, but it's like, I don't know, man. It's just, I just think it's all been blown out of proportion. Like, I don't really see why this has been like major headlines. It's like, I don't know, man. Like last year, Tkachuk, like Matthew Tkachuk's dad, called out the Florida Panthers when they were about to play in Toronto, in the biggest media market in the NHL, and like, what happens after that? Florida turns it around. They go to the Stanley Cup final.
No, I know, but I would say that's a little bit different in the sense it wasn't it's more critiquing players. His like off season, making it seem like he doesn't really give a fuck. You know what I mean? I don't know though, man.
I think it's just like, man, like, okay, he said this. Let's all move on.
But also like just staying on this topic for a sec, like, dude, I wonder if it's even in the sense like, I wonder if Rantanen trained a bit less, considering the year before, he went all the way to the Cup Finals, didn't have a lot of time to recover, and now it's like this year they're out in the first round. It's like, you know what, I have more time to kind of get my body back to 100%. You know what I mean? Everyone's talking now about like Tampa Bay, right? They finally didn't go on this run, and now some of their better guys, like, of course they would want to go on another run, but they have more time to recover. So I wonder if it has anything to do with that, dude. Like, it's like, it could be so many different things, but him saying that just like puts 100 different thoughts in my mind about what could have happened. And it seems like it's obviously not a good thing, what he was talking about, right? So it's like, I don't know. It is blown out of proportion, though.
Oh, for sure it is. I think we should move on to the big story from last night. We're recording on, Wednesday the 13th. I got all my days mixed up. But last night, Connor Bedard versus Connor McDavid. It was the Battle of the Connors for the first time in their young careers. Bedard, he started off the scoring just 3:21 into the game.
Snipe.
Holy shit, dude! I creamed myself watching that goal, dude. I had to change my underwear at work, bro. After
nice
watching
play
that,
through like Ekholm's stick, quick shot off, dude.
It was when you look up like the Connor Bedard goals from his juniors careers, where it's just that fucking toe drag release. It wasn't the toe drag, but it was just that fucking quick.
Nice play in the stick to kind of change direction.
The goalie can't read it. It was an absolute snipe. But it was McDavid and the Oilers who were laughing at the end of the game, coming away with a 4-1 win, as McDavid, he picked up 2 assists. Bedard, though, with the goal, he has extended his road point streak now to 10 games.
Unbelievable.
Yep. Second longest player in the NHL history second longest in NHL history by a player age 18 or younger.
You know how many goals he has in those 10 games?
What is it, 9, I believe? Yeah. The only player ahead of him, Nathan McKinnon, who was at 16 games his rookie season. So Bedard,
I would never. That's pretty high. I would never even expected that.
6 more games, Bedard will tie that. He's looked phenomenal. Let's talk about Bedard first off.
So yeah, like I wanted to talk about this because like some people are saying like, first off, the rookies this year are incredible.
Yeah.
I'm not discrediting like Fantilli or Carlson. Minchikov on the Ducks is looking really good. Luke Hughes, like
Korchinski,
dude, it's
Bedard's teammate.
There's so many guys, but my thing that puts Bedard over the edge of all these guys is he's doing it and he's the anchor. He's the best player on their team. He's playing those number 1 minutes. He's matching up against Connor McDavid, Sidney Crosby. You look at other guys in Fantilli, Leo Carlson. Yep, they're getting those minutes. They're playing a lot, but not every single shift, night in and night out, they're going against the best talent in the world. That's what's putting me for Bedard ahead of some of these people. I understand that the points category, it's not as far off as the voting I think would be, I guess, but man, I would be giving this guy the Calder Trophy right now. I think he 100% deserves it. I think that you can just see it in him, right? That it's like, there's just so much more, like, besides what he's doing. It's like, if he generated all these chances, like, every game, he's like, it feels like he could have a hat trick or like a couple assists or something. And I feel like once he's finally able to, like, almost finish all these chances, get some better talent even around him that are going to be better finishers, that like he could be a scary player in a couple years, and he already is a scary player. But imagine us talking about Bedard at 23.
That'd be
like, you know what I mean? It's like
I don't know. We'll talk
know
about that when we talk about the Oilers,
right? So
sure.
it's like, and he's 26, dude. So it's like we're 8 years into his career, and we're talking about Connor Bedard here at 18, how good he's looking, right? So I'm so excited for Connor Bedard and his future, to be honest with you. I easily am tuning into that game last night and watching that. It was a great game. But let's talk about the Oilers a little bit more, man. This is the team that I was talking about preseason.
They've been unreal, man. Unreal. They're a 8-game win streak, dude. Since November 24th, McNasty, he leads the NHL with 22 points in 8 games. If that wasn't on an 82-game pace, you know how many points that is?
22, 8 games. I would say that is about 190.
200 points.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, 200. Like, dude, this guy, if you don't take into account his first 10 games, 15 games of the season,
still a point per game,
where he was like, and he was playing at 50%, like he was injured, like really, like he was pretty.
Oh, I know. I think 100%. I think it was.
So far, a healthy McDavid this year is on pace for 200 points. Essentially, is what that comes down to. Holy fuck, man, this guy just continues to get better and better.
I think the thing with them is too, right? It's like they're producing, but I think that they're a lot more committed to team defense, right? Which is giving them opportunities to kind of go on the counterattack, make these plays. Obviously, they're a bunch of fucking power play merchants at times. Their power play is unbelievable once it gets going, right? And the thing is, like, Stuart Skinner's giving them a lot of saves right now. He hasn't been, obviously, like, great this year, including the start. His save percentage has obviously gone up quite a bit. I still am very skeptical of what their plan is, though.
Yeah.
Like, Pickard came in on the weekend, played a good game, but, like, I'm not convinced he's going to be, like, the guy to bring you. Campbell, it's like, he had a couple shit AHL games. He had a couple really good AHL games. So it's like, that doesn't necessarily mean that he's ready to come back up, right? And I don't think that's the right option, but they're just so tight to the cap, dude, where it's like any trade they make has to be dollar in, dollar out. So I think that teams are just saying, like, bro, if you want to move Campbell, like, give me a first and a high quality prospect, or like, you're not even like, I think every team has just said that, you know what I mean? So it's like, I feel like it's been almost like impossible for them to move him, but I don't know, like, man, dude, like, the thing is, it's like, this is great and all, but it's like, dude, if Skinner starts playing like shit, like, it could turn like this.
Yeah, it could again.
You know what I mean? So it's like, they need another guy back there, dude. And the thing is, it's like, are you going to play him 8 out of every 10 games for the rest of the season and then expect him to take you on this long playoff run? Like, that's not going to work.
You can't do that. Like, his numbers have been a lot better over his last 5 games. He's won 9-7 goals against, and what is 9.26 save percentage. So it's
Yeah,
like
that's like
over the last
Vesna
5
numbers,
yeah,
dude. Like that's
he's looked a lot better. What I'd do if I was Edmonton, I'd wait to the new year, sort of see if Stuart Skinner's taken a dip. Like, not to back to what he was to start the season, but like
maybe tiredness, some fatigue in there.
maybe his save percentage goes down to like a 9.10 and a goals against goes to like a 2.5, right?
Yeah.
By New Year, like I'd wait until the New Year, see how Skinner's doing, see how Campbell's doing, because then maybe you do call Jack Campbell up. Because it's like, if you're Edmonton, you don't want to like. The reason Edmonton hasn't picked up a goal yet is like they didn't want to rush into anything, right? Because it's like if you do rush into something, then it's like maybe for this year it bolsters your team a little bit, but like if you plan on having Leon and McDavid around for the next 10 years, then it's like you still want to be able to win, like,
dude,
later on.
It's crazy because
right?
like this team started so shit, and they've literally changed nothing besides their coach and their goalie and one of their goalies.
But the coach did change their defensive scheme a lot too, though.
It did, but like I don't know if I'm convinced that like Woodcroft couldn't do this. You know?
Maybe you just didn't want to, though. Maybe you just thought like right now,
and
maybe
look,
it
this
won't
is
help us,
nothing
but in the
against
long run
Knobloch
it
because
will.
he's coming in and doing a great job, right?
Yeah,
like, I just more or less feel bad for Woodcroft because I feel like he got stuck in a Leon slump, McDavid being injured, and terrible goaltending for 15 games, and it's like you're done.
Well, like St. Louis, they won't get like they haven't hired him, but like, hey, maybe do they hire him? Their thing is, they're a team that's going to go through a rebuild.
Not talking into it a lot, but it seems like my mind just goes right to Ottawa because I just think Smith's getting fired, but it seems like they're not going to fire him until they bring in a GM.
Yeah, they need a GM first, and the other thing is the players love him, man. Like if you, like, I don't think DJ Smith's a guy that they can fire mid-season and like Ottawa's going to start playing better. I think they play worse, man.
I'm convinced that he like lets them play the way they want.
Oh,
and they're not committed to team defense, and that's a problem.
Without a doubt, he does. But that's why the players fucking love him, man. It's like look at how Brady
even like Claude Giroux,
dude, about him, man.
Yeah,
it's like I don't think they'll be able to fire him mid-season, and like all those players will snap out of it and start playing like really good hockey. Like I think Brady, like fuck, dude, Brady almost killed Kachekov the other night, man. Like Brady might fucking kill Steve Stamkos, dude, if they fired DJ Smith mid-season here.
Yeah, I'm more or less just like on the train that like Smith should have been gone by now. Considering like now he's gonna be like one of the highest tenured coaches in the league, and this guy's never even played in the playoffs. Like, it's kind of insane to me since Berube's gone now too, right? So
it is something to question there.
Yeah.
I think we covered a fair bit this episode, though. Of course, man. Like this studio, I'm liking the studio vibes, dude.
It's looking pretty good, man. Definitely gonna like probably add a little bit more, change some shit around like from time to time. But I don't want to get like too into it. I know we kind of teased the World Juniors a bit last week, but I feel like it's probably a little bit better maybe to like save that for next week a bit. Like, we only had Czechia and Finland release their like initial rosters yesterday, right? So now every team's got at least their initial roster out. Like Canada is currently in the middle of playing U Sports in a couple games before they always do this pre-tournament. Yep. They're making, I believe, 4 forward cuts by the end of the week. So that's going to be narrowed down a bit because I also read as well that there's a possibility on the, you know how the NHL does like a trade freeze by the, so essentially the NHL does a trade freeze from I think December 23rd to Boxing Day where no one can be traded, put on waivers because it's like Christmas.
Yeah.
So they're saying apparently at the trade freeze, there's a possibility that Zach Benson and or Matt Poitras could join Canada.
Okay.
So I don't think it's completely out of the question yet that these guys are not going to be able to come. So that's also a thing with Canada too. I think they're cutting an extra forward because they think one of these guys is coming. Man, if you're able to get one of those two guys, though, like you take them. You take them too, right? Poitras's playing a big role in the Bruins this year. Benson, he's been out a little bit, but he's looked really good for the Sabres when he's been in too, right? So if you have the opportunity to add NHL talent, you definitely got to take it, right? Like Fantilli's not coming down. Bedard, like there's no fucking point of those guys going. Like what the hell's the point of them going down to?
None of the guys that have been making significant jumps and impacts in the NHL are going. Like if Connor Bedard was to go, man, like you're losing your best player, dude.
What's the point too? Like he's already won it last year. Like it doesn't really make much sense, to be honest.
Yeah, the only ones I could see going back are Poitras and Benson.
I was thinking maybe Korchinski, but they like him a lot, and he's on a.
Seth Jones is injured, man. Like that.
Korchinski's on a leave right now for family matters, anyway,
true.
right? So it doesn't seem like he's going. Everyone thought he was going because they're like he's left the team, so they were like, oh, he's going to World Juniors, but that's not the case. we'll get into the roster a bit more next week, but I'm not overly excited about Canada's roster, to be quite honest. I think them adding one of these NHL guys is really going to help them and kind of put their roster maybe a little bit over the edge. But as of right now, I honestly think USA has got a good chance of winning the tournament. They got a really good roster. We'll get into it more next week. I'm kind of curious to see who the final cuts will be. But it's exciting, man. I love watching the World Juniors every single year, dude. It's just like, you get to watch some of the best talent in the world, future NHL players. How many fucking studs have played in this tournament? You know what I mean? You talk about half of these guys that do podcast interviews years later, they're 30 years old. Like, one of their greatest memories is like playing in the World Juniors, dude. Yep. And the one other big thing people talk about is the Memorial Cup, right? So all those junior tournaments, they're great, man. It's just a ball. I am really excited that it's in Europe this year. I think sometimes when it's in last year in Eastern Canada was good. But once you get into like bigger cities and stuff in North America, it's like they're not as into it. No. Right? But going to like Gothenburg, Sweden, dude, like they're going to be pumped, dude. Sweden hasn't won in years despite being a dominant like round robin team. And so they're looking to win one on home ice, right? Like this is going to be a really interesting tournament, I think. Oh,
it's for sure going to be an interesting tournament. We'll be talking about a bunch next week. I know we were talking. We'll probably get Farzy on as a guest next week, and we can have him come in here in person. We can really talk about all the World Juniors teams. Farzi's going to love talking about
like a deep dive on some of like more individual players. Yeah. Like I'm not even necessarily like, I'm not familiar with like, dude, like I know like one guy on Norway or something who's like available for the draft. Like I don't know, like I
couldn't name one of those guys.
I don't know every single team very well. I would say like most of them I have like a good idea of like the majority of their roster and stuff. So like it's all just judgment, right? But yeah. Dude, the one thing about this tournament, right, is there's teams that surprise you, right? Like look at Czechia last year; they go all the way to the finals to lose an OT to Canada. Yeah, you look back at their roster; they're actually a pretty good roster. Like, I don't know, man. You might see another team this year, like kind of come out of nowhere, make the semis, finals. I'm ready for it, man.
Dude, I
want Canada to win again, but I don't know if it's gonna happen this year.
Dude, I'm hyped for you. As I mentioned, we'll be talking with Farzy on here next week. While it's going on, the World Juniors, we'll be recording that week as well. So we'll definitely be talking about that. Honestly, since I'm in Calgary, we'll probably be back to the no video. But yeah, going forward, we're gonna be having the video. If you guys have any like studio suggestions or anything, just to make it like look better, whatever it is, just like comment on the YouTube, send us a DM on like Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, whatever, wherever it is where you guys follow. Of course, thanks for listening. This has been episode 11. We'll be back same time next week. Thanks for tuning in, everybody.
Thanks, guys.